Mindfulness is throughout most of the translations kept as mindfulness. Meta-awareness sometimes is being translated as introspection, or sometimes being translated as alertness. Yeah, so there's two very essential mental factors. In order to develop a form of concentration, what we do in concentration is redirecting our mind. When our mind gets distracted, we want to redirect it, not towards the distraction, but towards the focus we have to focus upon. Right. So if you train in concentration meditation initially, then when you train in concentration meditation, you use these kind of factors of the mind, or properties of the mind, or mental factors, as we technically call them. Yeah. So we have 6 types of consciousness, as we just talked about, right? So 5 sensory perception and 1 mental consciousness. But there's all a very dynamic aspect of various mental factors. Yeah. So I won't go into the detail in the numbers, but certain traditions, they classify 51 or 52 or 46. Yeah, there's various classifications in the different Buddhist traditions, in the Pali tradition, as well in the Sanskrit Nalanda tradition. There's various kind of mental factors being described by definition, function, nature, very detailed kind of aspects. But let us just focus upon 2 of them. Yeah, so that means that the 6 types of consciousness, they cannot really operate all by themselves. It's like a king and or a queen and the ministers, or prime minister and the members of parliament, for example, right? The prime minister cannot completely function all by themselves, right? So by his or herself, it needs a kind of community, so to say. So here also you see the dependence being very important. And then with these mental factors, they actually like the members of parliament, you could say. They're a bit more interesting than maybe members of parliament, I don't know, but they actually help our mind to function. Yeah. So, and then those 2 mental factors we just talked about, mindfulness and meta-awareness, or sometimes translated as alertness or introspection. Yeah, they are very essential. Initially, they're essential in developing concentration. And then once concentration is developed, then they're very essential in directing the mind. Because what you do in concentration, basically, you redirect the mind every moment it gets distracted. Every moment it thinks about the past or the future, you bring it back to the present. Yeah, you bring it back to what you're supposed to be doing, and that's the object of concentration in this case. For example, the counting of the breath. Yeah, and that what happens there is you try to concentrate on one particular object. Let's say the counting of the breath. Yeah, you count every in-breath as 1, out-breath as 2, then in-breath as 3, and then you count from 1 to 10. And you do that practice for, let's say, a few minutes. Then you do it, and then you will see that the mind is just wandering off. Yeah, if you don't have these 2 mental factors, before you know, probably 10 minutes passed, and you thought, what was I supposed to be doing again? What I'm doing? You're completely lost in the thoughts, right? So you need those mental factors to actually direct your mind. Yeah, and if you develop concentration in that way by being alert, that's this mental factor alertness, or meta-awareness, sometimes being translated, that as soon as the mind drifts off to the past or future or to a thought pattern, you be alert about it. Yeah, you recognize it, so to say. And then with mindfulness, you bring your mind back to what you're supposed to be doing, which is in this case the counting of the breath, right? So alertness is kind of this policeman or policewoman on the side of your mind, checking if you're doing the right things, or if you not getting distracted, or not thinking about past and the future, if you are not if you're getting away from the present moment, so to say. So then with this alertness, you recognize that there is a distraction. Yeah, so that you train in concentration meditation in that particular mental factor. Then as soon as you recognize there's a distraction, then with mindfulness, you bring your mind back to the object you're supposed to be focusing upon, right? So that means mindfulness is a kind of a free translation, could be also is kind of remembrance. Yeah, to remember an object, and then the particular object you're familiar with. That's kind of how we normally define it in the Pali tradition, as well as in the Sanskrit tradition. That mindfulness is kind of a remembrance of something you're familiar with. So we have mindfulness all the time of our objects of desire, for example, or our objects of anger, for example. Yeah, when we think about this person you annoys you so much, there is single pointed concentration present, so to say, with regards to that thought. You do not get distracted at a time you're in this completely rage of anger. There's no distraction at all, because you just only focus upon this person being bad, or the situation being bad, right? So that's, in one way, we have those mental factors like concentration. We have them, but we don't use them properly. We should use them in a more constructive way. Yeah, so that's kind of a sign that concentration is present, especially because if I ask you to meditate on patience, then I think you're struggling to keep your mind focused upon contemplating, being calm, and contemplating the aspects of having a calm mind and being patient, right? But if you that you have to put quite some effort. But if I trigger your minds by looking about your hairdress, or the way you dressed, or the way you have your hair, or the way you wear your glasses, or sometimes people have all kind of headphones these days on the Zoom conversations, so you can make a joke about that, or you can actually cause a person to get really annoyed, right? So then that's very easy, so our habituation patterns to these kind of destructive emotions is quite strong. That's kind of a sign. But there's a possibility to actually rewire that, or whatever you like to call it, to actually restructure your mind in that way. So that if you engage in initially concentration meditation, and you develop these two mental factors, as we call alertness and mindfulness, right? So you be alert as soon as the mind gets distracted, and you bring it back. Then you get peace of mind, you get concentration, then you get clarity of the mind, right? So that's a very constructive state of mind in order to solve problems and to acquire some happiness, basically. Why do people engage in extreme sports? It's a very interesting question, because in extreme sports, you live in the moment, so to say, and it gives a kick, that gives a bliss of the mind. If you don't have to think about the future or the past, it gives peace of mind. That's what we know with staying in the present moment. It gives a peace of mind. Because if you go down free skiing somewhere in the Alps, and you just take a track in free skiing, if your mind is not in the moment, the trees will cause you to have a very destructive kind of future, right? So you have to be in the moment, so that's kind of, and people who go in these kind of sports, they get a kick, and there's a reason for that, because you are in the moment, right? So living in the moment itself is gives you a kind of quietness or peace of mind, so that's kind of a basis to walk upon. If you have this basis of peace of mind, then you can think much clearer. Same with when Dr. Dengova told about people sometimes are in their strains of negative thoughts. We often have to take a distance of those strains in order to work with it. So we go for a holiday, or we go for a break and come back with more clarity, and then look at it and can solve it much better. So with the mind, we should do something similar. You go to a place that is kind of gives you relaxation, gives you peace of mind, and that after that peace of mind, it gives you insight. And not only gives you insight, but by having trained in these two mental factors in this concentration meditation that gives you peace of mind, right? Then you take those two mental factors into daily life, because then you look at things from a distance. If you look at things from a distance, there's much more acceptance of difficult issues in life. If you have distance, there's more clarity. And then if there's more clarity, there's more control. There's more control of the mind to shift the mind in the way you want to shift it. And there again, the way to shift it, as soon as there's a negative thought that passes by or comes up, there's various methodologies to use to redirect your mind, or to not pay attention, or to break down those thoughts, right? But it mainly depends on these two mental factors, that if you're aware of the thoughts coming up in an initial moment, then with mindfulness, you can redirect your thoughts. And in particular, if you have trained your mind with some concentration, and you have some peace of mind, so from that basis of peace, that we know in a lake in the Alps, when it's no wind and when it's a clear summer morning, you look in the lake, and then everything reflects. Yeah, the sky, the blue sky, and a few white clouds, and the snow mountains and the trees, everything is crystal clear. But then when the winds of the destructive emotions come, then the clarity goes, right? So in our mind is very similar, that we need clarity, which we can accomplish with this kind of concentration meditation. And then we take that clarity throughout the day and then try to focus on that clarity, let's say every hour or so throughout the day, to make sure we get a little bit touched down on this quiet aspect of the mind. And then in between, because the main challenge or the main practice is in between the meditation sessions, right? Our meditation sessions are very short, but the main practice come to how do we practice when we're not sitting on the cushion. Yeah. So then if you sit on the cushion and you train in these two mental factors, then you take them out into daily life. And then as soon as your negative thought comes by, then alertness recognizes that. And then with mindfulness, you can redirect or think about your good intention you put in the morning, for example. Yeah, you remember that good intention and then you redirect your mind, so to say. And then you have an opportunity basically to change. Yeah, so these mental factors of alertness and mindfulness, or meta awareness and mindfulness, are very essential to be trained in these kind of meditation techniques, right? Or simple concentration meditation techniques. And then with that, you can actually be more aware. So you be more aware of the different emotions in your life. And then not only more aware of emotions, but then also you start to see more. You start to see that these destructive emotions, so to say, are not in accordance with reality. And because you see they're not in accordance with reality, you can tackle them much better. You know, you don't go in this emotional hijack as you did before. Yeah, if you have more peace of mind, you have more distance, there's more clarity, and then those two mental factors are stronger. When a particular thought comes up, you can redirect it according to these two kind of potentials of the mind, so to say. And then that goes all the way up to the redirecting eventually destructive emotions from the root. Yeah, if you then eventually understand ultimate reality and see that everything is a nature of dependence, then you see there is nothing existing from its own side as such. And then you see also these destructive emotions and our problems, they're not as solid as they appear. And then over time, we can work on that as well, and actually deal much better with the difficulties in life, so to say. Yeah, so maybe I think, that's more or less the time that was being given. And maybe that's a nice way to stop with this presentation. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Geshe. I always appreciate the precision with which you speak. And today talking about delusions, the delusions that make us suffer, and some of the ways that we can escape them. So that was wonderful. Well, it's time for questions. People are welcome to ask questions in the chat room. We already have received a lot of them. So I think I'll start with one of them and pose it first to Geshe. This was directed to Geshe, but I think it would be nice to get Dr. Denkova's response as well. So here's the question. What does Buddhism have to say about willpower? I find that it plays a crucial role in our conviction that there is an essential ego which is in control of our life experiences and reactions. I wonder why this subject is not usually addressed in Buddhist teachings. So I think it'd be nice to get the scientific view on willpower as well afterwards. So Geshe, do you want to address that?
Oh, willpower is, I don't know what kind of, willpower is very strong in Buddhism, actually. Because if you follow, for example, the Bodhisattvayana path, and you want to become a Buddha yourself, then the willpower is complete beyond imagination of ordinary willpower we have in day-to-day life. Because willpower is one aspect, is on a more secular aspect, we could say willpower is based upon kind of seeing your potential and believing your potential, right? That we know we can change and we know how we can change. So that is just a matter of putting some effort in that direction, and there we go. So it's a kind of, I think willpower is a very essential and very important aspect of the Buddhist doctrine, that because of the potential we have, and because of the ability that the mind is changeable, and the methodology that is available then it's just a matter of fact of putting some effort in a direction and off you go with willpower, you know. So in one way, that's really true. But then if you ask the question, it might be related with we don't consider from its own side existing self, so to say. We don't consider things as existing in an independent way, right? So that's also an aspect of Buddhism, because everything is in nature of dependence. And because everything is in nature of dependence, there's no inherent self, as we say. But exactly because there's no inherent self, there is a conventional self that has the potential to develop, right? So in that context, I think, yeah, willpower is actually very strong in Buddhism, because the Buddha said, look, there's suffering. Look, there's a cause of suffering. Look, there's a possibility to solve it. Yeah, the truth of cessation. And then the methodology, how to do it. So that creates an incredible kind of science of the mind, of understanding the issues and understanding the possibility to solve the issues, and then also understanding the methodology behind it, with this very constructive kind of aspect of, I'm going to do this and I can do it. Yeah. So in that way, I think willpower is quite present in Buddhism. Yeah. It's only when it relates with the self that exists in a conventional way. It doesn't exist inherently. Yeah. Then of course we talk, there's no inherent self, right? But on a conventional level, the development and the potential to develop is definitely there, and that produces this kind of courageous attitude, I could say. Yeah.